How do you stay positive when faced with your life challenges? Have you ever wondered why it is that two people can face the same circumstances in life and one of them stay focused and overcome their adversity while the other person's life will descend into chaos and negativity? This same scenario occurs when two people are trying to make lifestyle and diet changes. While one person will stick to their weight and health goals, another at the first hurdle will give up and state that it was too hard or life got in the way. What is the difference between these two people? The difference is simply how they perceive their circumstances. We create meaning and act accordingly to how we perceive the world around us. We do not see the world as it is, we see the world as we are. Do you stay positive in face of your life challenges, or are your first thoughts, why me? If you stay positive, you can overcome and grow through your life challenges and stick to your weight and health goals. If you are, on the other hand, the type of person that says, why me, and feels the world is against you, more often than not, you may give up at the slightest setback. The great thing is, people can alter their lives by altering their attitude of mind. What do you do to improve and strengthen your mind?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this week's edition of Make Health Your Habit podcast live. I'm really excited about the show today. I have some fantastic guests with us today, and we're talking about a subject which is incredibly dear to my heart, which is men's health. You know, there are some issues with men and the way that they look after their health. And today, we don't have so much experts in men's health, but we have experts in manhood, because we're all men. And we're going to have a discussion today about some of the possible issues it is why women seemingly are more caring about their health. Why men don't look after their health in the way they should. Is it a question of nurture? Is it a question of masculinity? Is it a question of pride? Is it a question of ego? You know, we're going to knock heads today and see. But, you know, I always like to see who's on and who's on the show. So if you are in the show, please just say hi. If you know, we have the chat there. If you are on YouTube, Facebook, or even LinkedIn, just say hi. You know, it's nice to be nice. And look, the biggest issue in our minds, especially if in the UK this week, is the lockdown. And I suppose this show is even more pertinent when you look at the lockdown, because statistics show in the last lockdown that people's health declined. And if men are not looking after their health, then their health are going to decline even more. So that's why this point show is so important. So hi, I know that is whoever you are there. I can't see your name there, but hi, thank you very much. Again, just say hi. Just say, I mean, I've got three great guys who will feel some love. They'll feel some real love if you turn around and say like. So again, if you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, just go to the comments box and just say hi and just say hello, and you'll have an opportunity throughout the show to possibly, you know, put your point of view forward, and then also speak and possibly, you know, pose some questions to the guys that are in the chat. So before I kind of introduce you, or them more importantly introduce themselves, let me give you a little bit of a backdrop here. And, you know, I was looking at some of the statistics regarding men and what's happening, and I want to share some with you. Hi Zilla, nice to see you on the show today, a regular. Great to see you back. Hope you find it interesting. So just firstly, just to create a backdrop, I'm going to share with you 5 surprising men's health statistics. All right. The first one is, and these are all related invariably to the UK, 1 in 5 men dies before the age of 65. So their mortality rate is not that great. So they're dying young. I mean, 65 is not old. I mean, when I was younger, I used to think 65 was old, but now I'm reaching that age near enough. I know 65 is not old. There are some people that are living their life to the fullest at 65. So 1 in 5 men die at the age of 65. Okay, 50% of men over 50 develop an enlarged prostate. I'm sure that will be a topic of conversation today. Prostate cancer. So remember, if you're over 50, 50% of men develop an enlarged prostate. That doesn't mean you've got prostate cancer. It means your prostate is enlarged and you have to be aware of it. 1 in 7 men die from coronary heart disease. They have a heart attack. 1 in 7 men. Is that stress? Is that just the way they live? Is that worry? Is that hard work? But 1 in 7 men die from coronary heart disease. And 1 in 10 men now have diabetes. I mean, I've done a number of shows about diabetes and the effect that diabetes has on the community in a whole. But look, 1 in 10 men have diabetes. That's not even counting the men that have pre-diabetes and don't even know anything about it. And finally, 1 in 8 men have reported to have mental health problems. That's a high number. And as we know already, the COVID period and the lockdown, the isolation period has made mental issues even more greater. So those are some stark statistics there, I would say. I would definitely say there are definitely some stark statistics that at least set the backdrop for our conversation today. So I'm going to take the comments off here and I'm just going to firstly introduce. Well, he's going to introduce himself, and I'll do it with the order that they came onto the show. So I'm going to introduce a gentleman I know for a long time. I was in an organization called 100 Black Men with him. He is a man who can definitely speak for himself. Absolutely, he could definitely do it. I know he doesn't need me to speak for him at all. So without further ado, let me introduce you to Mr. Paul Lawrence, and he will just briefly introduce himself and allow you to understand. Good evening, Paul.
Hi, Ken. How you doing?
I'm excellent, sir. I'm excellent. Just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, a little bit about myself. As Ken said, I'm Paul Lawrence. We go way back to the early days of the 100 Black Men of London. I've been living in London now for just over 31 years. I run a number of my own companies, plus do some other work otherwise. But yeah, very, very interested in this topic of men's health and why we act the way we act in and around it. I've had my battles with health, and I think I can add some insight to what we're going to be talking about today.
Great. Thank you very much, Paul. Paul, I'm going to leave your mic on, and I am now going to introduce to a man I've known for a number of years. He did some serious professional work at an events company I used to have called Decorum a few years ago, and he's an incredibly funny man, but he's also a serious man. So it's a pleasure to have the gentleman on the show with us this evening. Mr. Rudy Liquid, come in and let us know and hear. Tell us a little about yourself, Mr. Liquid. There you are, sir.
Yeah. Thanks. I'm a granddad. I'm a father. I am a husband. I'm a son. I'm Black, British, and proud. And I use humor as a way of getting serious messages across. Is the best way that I can put it. But most of all, I try to look at the funny side of things, but not in a trivial, I guess, not in a trivial way is the best way to put it.
Yeah, well, I know it's great to be funny and serious, because humor is a great way to be able to heal many things. Possibly we're going to talk about that. But again, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. And let me just say publicly, this is only my 5th week doing this. And appearing on your show about 6-7 weeks was a catalyst. It gave me the confidence to say, well, I can do this. So thank you very much for allowing me to be a guest on your show. And I just thought I'd publicly,
That's okay. People often look down at the comics and say, well, if they can do it, then anybody can.
Oh, no. That's not how I went. Come on now. It's not that kind of show. It is not that kind of show, all right? I mean, that was meant with the highest esteem. Anyway, let me now. Let me not into. Okay, well, let's go there. Well, if you want to go there, let me introduce you to the third gentleman here. A gentleman I have a great amount of respect for. DJ Mr. P, please introduce yourself.
Greetings, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. Good evening to you, Ken. Good evening to you, Paul, and also Rudy. Yeah, DJ Mr. P, as my title suggests, radio presenter, broadcaster, media professional, background in electronics, IT. So I'm doing a lot of things behind the scenes and just keeping myself busy and managing the madness in these times, shall I say, just managing the madness in these times.
Okay, great. And just like I paid Rudy some accolade, let me just pay you some personal accolade because you have been a great mentor to me on my journey. I really do appreciate your feedback. It's helped me grow and develop. And as men, I think it's right that we're vulnerable and congratulate them. So I really want to thank you publicly for the support that you've given me so far. But we are going to move on. So gentlemen, the four of us are here now. So, let me take the backdrop. So over the course of the week, I asked some questions on my Facebook and I kind of got some answers. There's some of the questions got some real traction, some real excited and emotional comments. So what I'm going to do, I think we all have our issues around our thoughts around men's health, but let's just deal with these 5 or 4 comments first, and then we can see, where we move from there. So what I'll do, I'll read the comments out, and then I'll just come to you and I'll ask each of you for your individual thoughts, and we'll have a little banter, and we'll see where Rudy wants to take it, because if he's in a good mood, it'll be all nice and easy. But if he wants to, I don't know where he wants to go today, but we're going where he wants to go. Rudy, so this is the first question today. All right, so
let's keep
you got to keep him happy, man. That's it. So this is the question. So the first question is this. All right, so let's go there. So why don't men go to the doctors as often as women? So this was the first question I posted.
Okay.
And it's got some really interesting comments. And I'm just going to read to you a couple of the comments that came back, and then I'll come to you. And I'm going to come in the order of the people who came on. So I'm going to come to Paul first after this. So the first feedback was, I blocked out whoever said it. All right. So they said, fear, don't like to be poked or any instrument being inserted into their body. Oh, you weak hearts. I blocked out the name, but that was a comment. You may agree, you may not. But, you may agree, you may not. But that was a comment. And the second one I took, because I took 2 from each one, is this. And it says, men think they can brave it out. And then think the problem will go away. And there's a real lack of understanding that they can become ill at any given time. Women generally talk if they are feeling unwell, but a lot of men don't. If they talk more, then they would be advised to go to the doctor and seek and have a problem. So, Mr. Lawrence, men don't go to the doctors as often as women, and you heard a couple of comments.
Let's clear something up early. No, we don't like to be poked. Yeah, don't even begin to try and hold that against us. We don't like to be poked. That's the end of that side of the conversation. However, to the more serious point, look. Whenever we have these conversations, we have a tendency to try and take them outside of the normal context of everything we know historically about how men are raised. Yeah? And if we do that, then our actions start to look weird. But if we understand the context of how men are raised, where it's about seeing it through, bearing the pain, doing this, being a quote unquote man about things,
yes.
yeah. And when you have that you've been with for, I wasn't ill until I was in my late 40s. I'd never been sick. I've never missed a day's work. So when you spent 40 odd years being convinced by the world that you're supposed to be a Superman, by looking back at your 40 odd years and never having a single illness either, so now mentally you're starting to think, well, maybe I am Superman. Yeah. when the first illness creeps up on you, and we can talk later about when my first illness crept up on me, you don't even recognize it as illness. And that was certainly my story. I did not even recognize it as illness. Something like a cold, that didn't require me to go to the doctor. I knew that if I went out for a quick swim or a quick run when I could still run, it would be gone. And that was it. So the whole ethos of why we don't go to the doctor has to be taken into context in the way we are socialized from birth as men. When your little son drops over and scratches his knee, you tell him to brush it off. When your daughter drop over and scratch her knee, you grab her and cuddle her. What was the expectation? That we would somehow grow up different from how we were socialized? Nah, give me a break. You're muted, Ken.
Can't hear you, Ken. Can't hear you.
We're going to come back to that question. And for the person who asks how often do we add the chat is going to stay up now in the middle. We're going to leave the chat because if you want to make a comment while everyone's talking, feel free to make your comment in the chat. Rudy.
Yeah.
Why don't we like to be poked? Why don't men like to be poked? Why?
It's not, I don't think it's just. I think Paul has left no room for nobody. The whole thing. That I wrote down was childbirth and the way we are taught to be men. I mean, I remember when my grandson, we was in the park and he was on his bike for the first time, and he dropped off the bike, yeah, and I see the tears ready for coming. I said to him, "Hey, get up, not bother cry, dust yourself down, and get on with it." Yeah, that is how we were raised as men. And I have to agree with Paul. There's nothing really that I can really add, in all honesty, because an intelligent man is a greedy man. That's how I look on it. Yeah.
Okay.
And
okay.
He really has covered all the bases here in that respect. I think the other thing,
Rudy, what does fear? What would you say fear has to do with a man not going to the doctor?
No,
give you a different
fear.
It's not the fear.
Fear.
Okay.
No, fear comes, but what it is the unknown.
Is that not the same as fear?
It's because you don't know. There's something wrong that you don't know. There's something wrong that you don't understand. And we've always been put in a position where we're meant to be in control. We're meant to know. We're meant to know where the next meal is coming from. We're meant to know where the next pound is coming from. We're meant to know how to fix the cupboard. We're meant to know how to fix the car. All of a sudden, the man doesn't know. So that puts him in a vulnerable position.
But doesn't going to the doctor mean he can find out then? I'm just posing a question.
If you're going, no, I hear what you're saying. But when are you going to the doctor? You're only going to him for bad news. That's how it feels. It feels
okay.
Like, I'm going
so it's the bad news. Okay.
Yeah, bad news. It's not good news.
Good
I
news.
never go to the doctor because I got good news. I ain't going to him to give me an apple. You know what I mean? I'm going to him because I have an issue.
So you want a good news doctor? Okay.
All the time.
So Mr. DJ, Mr. P, why don't men go to the doctors in the same way that women go to the doctors? Do you have a perspective on that?
Okay, I've got a perspective on it. I can't answer the question because I don't know what's going on in the hearts and minds of all the men. I can speak for myself and the guys that I know. And it's much of which has actually been echoed already by Paul and Rudy. And what I mean, for me personally, I don't have a problem going to the doctors. I really don't have an issue going to see the doctor. Paul's very right in saying the way in which we've been socialized is man up and deal with things, and the example given with the boy falling down and scratching his knee. Yeah, boy, stop, get up. That's the kind of attitude that we got from our not necessarily our parents, but our older brothers and sisters, older siblings. Now, I've actually raised two children. They're not mine biologically, but I've raised two children from their babies, basically. And it's really one boy, one girl. Now, it's really you've got to be there's got to be a certain amount of sensitivity. It's a fine line, and at the same time, you really do need to understand the position that they're in and what you've been through as well as a child.
Okay.
Right? So generally speaking, in my opinion, men have been raised to be the bread makers, the breadwinners, the providers, bravado, the strong man. You're here to protect. Your role in life is to provide and to protect.
Yeah.
And we are not all the same. We
So-
are not all the same.
So
Some
here's
men
the
are more
question.
sensitive than others.
So here's the question. We you know, and this is, you know, we're brought up to provide and protect. But if we're not healthy, we can't do it. We can't provide,
I agree.
and we cannot.
I agree.
So isn't there a contradiction there, Mr. P?
Yeah, yes, there in a way. I'll share something with you quickly. Yeah, good friend of mine and a client of mine, Errol McKellar. He does the prostate cancer UK thing, and he's raised millions. He's raised millions for prostate cancer UK. Now, Errol had an event in Neasden last year, and I went to that event, and I actually got more information about prostate cancer than I was more informed. I didn't realize that, you know, certain things. So I went to my doctors, and I said, "Yeah, listen, I just want to, you know, get a check." The guy, Nigerian doctor, cool guy, he was not interested in poking me anywhere. He's telling me about, we do the blood test first, and every time I'm calling this guy, he does not want to test me fully. So I'm in the process of actually changing
you want
surgery
it
because
to be tested. You want it to be tested. Why want you to test me? What's wrong with me?
I want to test
Are you saying you felt left out, Rudy? Is that what you're saying? You felt neglected? No, are you saying you felt neglected? That's what I think. That's what you're trying to imply. That he felt neglected.
I'm not implying it. I'm actually saying it.
Mr. P is saying you felt neglected. You what? Okay, listen. So here's just a summary on this one here. Yeah, because we're going to move through. Your parent. I think we're all parents on here. Is that correct?
Yeah. That's correct. Yeah.
You have your child. He's a boy. He's sick. You don't look at your young son and said, "You're sick, I'm not taking you to the doctor." Do you? You look at your young son and say he's sick, and you take him to the... So the question is, where does that transition go from knowing that your son needs to go as a young person, but you as an adult, decide that you don't want to go? Paul.
Hold on a second now. First of all, let me make a little confession.
Go on.
A couple of years ago, we were in the Cornwall Museum in the park playing volleyball with my son, and he fell over, and he said, "Dad, my hand don't feel right." Okay. So I said, "Walk it off." Turns out he had broken his wrist.
So, and you're admitting that on air? I mean, come on.
I'm just trying to say that it's not as clean cut as you say. It wasn't until, you know, about 5 minutes later, I looked at him and I thought, he's not getting back into this. He had broken his wrist, and he was bravely walking it off. So we have to understand. Yeah, and I hear what everybody says. I understand that. Hi, Ade. But the reality of the matter is, a lot of how we are socialized is in us. And I want to make a point just before I let it go.
We're going to come to the socialization point. We're going to come to the socialization point.
It's not just by our fathers.
Okay, we're going to come to that one point. We're going to come to that. Okay, so I'm kind of getting the feel that there's a consensus here that fear, and to a certain extent, men feel that ignorance is bliss. You know, they feel that ignorance is bliss. Yes.
No,
okay.
Not where my help is concerned.
But you're saying you don't want to get poked, so that means ignorance is bliss, Rudy.
No, it's not about that. It's about a whole different thing which you don't
want
to go into on a family.
Okay. All right then. So let's hold that point. Let's move on, because the questions. I mean, I think David just said, I believe our generation has a deep distrust. We didn't talk about that. We didn't talk about a distrust. That's a great point, David. There are people who distrust the medical establishment. Absolutely, especially in this coronavirus time. It's come out even more. So it's a great point there, David. Thank you very much for putting that point out. Let's just move on to the next question. that I posed on Facebook and see, because they're all kind of interlinked. So the next question that was posed on Facebook was this one here. So let me just move the comments out the way for the moment so you could see. So I'll move the comments here. So the next question was posed was, can a man be vulnerable without appearing weak? And these are the two comments I chose to show from that. I said there's no longer gender in being vulnerable and showing emotion. In fact, if a man shows his emotions and even cries, it shows him as strong, not weak. It shows him as being human. All right. They also talk about it's culture that makes men try to behave strong and go against his human nature. Men should just feel vulnerable. And then the other comment was, it said, Ken, in many cultures, men are expected to be strong and don't show their emotions. And otherwise, men and otherwise seen as weak. And we grow boys up in the same way. I think you were just alluding to that, Paul. Puts a lot of pressure on some guys who are touched with their emotion. All right. So that was the kind of comment on, can a man be vulnerable and also be rude? Rudy, tell me, can a man be vulnerable but without appearing weak or feeling weak?
It depends. It depends on who he is around. Around my wife, it don't matter, you know.
Okay.
Around my wife, it don't matter. But mind you, though, we had to get through 15 years before I got to that point.
Okay. So
right.
So is, just to come back on the first question, is a man going to the doctor a sign of him being vulnerable?
No, that's a sign that he's not well. That's not vulnerability. That's your body telling you that you are not well.
Okay.
Because remember, we are spiritual beings, and we're only within this body. It's just a carcass. So the carcass is rotting. That's how I look at it. In terms of age, right? And you can't hold back Father Time, no matter who you are. Invulnerability is not something that God blessed us with.
So you can
come here for.
You can only be vulnerable. You feel in front of your wife. You've been in front of 10 years.
No, that's not what. No, that's not.
Oh, I'm just asking a question.
What I meant was, it depends on who you're around. When Felix Dexter died, and we all went to his cremation, his funeral. Sorry, and we were going through the service, and I burst into tears. Yeah, I was the only one who burst into tears, but that's not the point. The thing is, I burst into tears because I knew what Felix had done for the for my industry.
Okay.
Right. And it was Angela Ma who came over to me and told me to man up.
Oh, she told you to man up. A woman came and told you to man up because you were crying.
Because I was shedding tears. Right?
And how did you feel about that?
I put it this way: I didn't feel embarrassed for it because I knew that the emotions that I felt at that point in time were true to me, and I don't have a problem with being, as a comedian, you don't have a problem being outside of the social clique. Yeah, so it's not a problem to me how people view me because I have a big sense of self anyway.
Okay. So that helps. Having a big sense, having a big self-esteem, having real confidence, you feel allows you to be more vulnerable, yeah?
I don't know, to be honest with you. I don't know if that's the answer to that. Yes. I can only go by what works for me and where I'm coming from, because I'm self-reliant, you know, self-employed, you know, and with all of those things in mind, I know that I know I'm not Superman because I saw what happened to my granddad and my father.
Okay, yeah. You know, T has put a great comment. He says, men are professional at internalizing their vulnerability and become proficient in portraying a strong front. That's a great point. Mr. P, you're, I think being vulnerable is subjective. You know, what's your take on a man being vulnerable? And when a man is vulnerable, do you think that makes him appear weak, or are you the kind of person who's prepared to show your vulnerability in public?
In answering your question, a man can be vulnerable without appearing weak. I do agree with that. Many times I've been vulnerable in public, in private, with past girlfriends or with family members and stuff. I when my first brother died, yeah, at the funeral, I burst into tears, and I wasn't trying to hold them back. I needed to. I'm a sensitive person. I'm very much in touch with my feminine side, but I'm able to express how I feel, and I think one of the I'm just going to touch on something now, which I think you're going to be speaking about later. But I think one of the issues that so many of us African men within our community have a problem with mental health is for that lack of self-expression when it comes to our emotions, and we suppress how we feel. Yeah. So I'll come back to that. But in terms of vulnerability, I've got no problem being vulnerable in front of people. It does depend what it is and where it is. It does depend, but I can be sensitive and be vulnerable without being weak.
So, Mr. Lawrence, when a man is sick, can a man perceive being sick, not being his full strength, as him being in a state of vulnerability? Is that possible?
Of course.
Okay.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm gonna get back on that same horse I came back with.
Okay.
Think about how we're socialized. So we are socialized. Well, certainly the way I was brought up, but I wasn't brought up in this country. I was brought up in Jamaica, and my understanding was, as a man, no matter what happened, you're supposed to get up every morning and go to work. Yeah? And you're supposed to go to work, earn a living, bring home the bread. The moment you are sick, you can no longer do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah? And so, even though it's counterintuitive, to think, well, what you should actually do, you should actually go to the doctor as quickly as possible. The reality is, you're sitting there saying, well, the doctor will tell me I'm not for work for 2 weeks. Yeah, and I'm not saying that's the case for every man. I'm just saying. But also, we can't forget our history. We can't forget context.
Sorry to cut in.
So when it comes to me as an individual, I agree with what Rudy was saying. So what Rudy is saying, for me, is the ultimate point. It depends on who's around you. Yeah, it depends on the people around you.
Okay. So
your ability to feel vulnerable and to turn to your partner and say, "Well, I don't feel well today," you know, and know, and feel that safety.
Yeah.
We're still emotional beings. No matter how
Can
hard
I throw something in there?
I'm gonna come to you with that, because you're good there, Paul. Because Rudy mentioned something about history. So what's the context of history you want to bring into Rudy?
The context is if a black man is seen to be weak, what's Massa gonna do to him?
Okay.
You're gonna get lashed.
We've carried that burden for it's DNA.
Can I play devil's advocate here? Can I play devil's advocate? Are you saying? I mean, we can look historically and we could say, okay, that is true. That's a truism. But are you saying that is still the case today?
Well, you always go to the root, don't you? We're saying there's a problem. Yeah.
Okay.
We're not talking like the pharmaceutical industry who deals with symptoms. We're talking about a root. Yeah. That's why I love Dr. Sebi, etc., etc. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
We get to the root. Let's get to the root. And if we're going to talk about vulnerability and why is it when men don't want to, when they're ill, they don't want to be ill. Yeah. Because remember, we come from societies and civilizations where women used to run the village. Yeah. We're not unaccustomed to that. Yeah. Okay. But we're living in this society and we're dealing with now, and I bring it right back to today. Yeah. And I'm saying we have baggage. We are a traumatized race of people.
So you know, you look at the society we live in today. So the question would be then, if we've carried that historical baggage, then every single baggage we had back then we've carried up to now. What's the differential? Okay.
There is
Well, I
none.
mean, it's your perspective. I mean,
Yeah, sure,
that's absolutely fine. I mean, I'm just playing devil's advocate here,
of course.
because the question is, I suppose, vulnerability is subjective, and as a lot of people are making some points about, it's about socialization, and men being told to man up all the time. All right. Let me move on to the next. We're going to come back, maybe round. Let me move on to the next point. That the next question that I asked on Facebook. Let me move the comments to the left, and this was the next point I asked, and it kind of ties in. And funny enough, it said, "Is it okay for a man to cry?" This comment got the most interaction, the absolute most, and it said, "Thinking we should be encouraged to express and deal with our emotions honestly, especially men. Any negative judgments belong to the judge, and they should be dealt with introspectively." And then the other comment was,
Okay.
from a biological standpoint, men are equally created with emotions and tear ducts. So the answer is yes. In society, however, men are raised to believe that crying or displaying emotions is a feeling of weakness, which results in suppressed emotions, which leads to long-term issues and potentially affecting men's spiritual, mental levels. Now, that is quite deep, and that was quite an interesting one. So let me just comment on this point first, on this crying, and Paul would be able to testify to this. I mean, as you know already, was we done a show on Sunday on Paul's People Talks podcast talking about the 100 Black Men and the time there. I did 3 terms there, and I had to leave. I was very passionate about it. I started 100 Black Men from my heart because I wanted to give back. And I freely admit, on the last time I had to give a speech of 100, I cried like a baby. And there must have been 100 people in the room out with cameras and XYZ. But I have to say, me personally, I cried. Huh? I cried. I'll admit, I cried. It's smiling good. But here's the thing. While I was crying, I felt, a little bit embarrassed. But in coming off the stage and talking to individuals, it was kind of empowering. After the conversations with a few people, I didn't feel emasculated in any way. And they didn't see it. Even though I may have felt I was emasculating myself, they didn't see it. So, Mr. P,
But
I'm going to come to you, Rudy. Is it okay for a man to cry in public with his girlfriend or when he's feeling emotional? Is it okay for a man to let it out, Mr. P?
Absolutely, absolutely. And as I said earlier on, when I lost my first brother, I bawled like a baby. I bawled like a baby, and it's not so much about it's a sensitive time and I'm going to cry. It's how I'm feeling. If I'm crying, it's how I'm feeling. If I'm smiling, it's how I'm feeling. If I'm screw face, it's how I'm feeling. Yeah. So I'm quite comfortable with expressing my own emotions. And as I said earlier on, the suppression will lead to illness. Eventually, it will lead to illness. And the last time I cried this year, was the day George Floyd. 2 days after George Floyd died. As soon as I watched the video, because I managed to see the full video before it got deleted, and I sat there and I cried. I cried at what I saw, and how can you not? How insensitive or cold or hard can you be that you won't cry? Oh, and before I forget, just wanted to say hi to David Omaji and Shea Scoffrey, who are logged in as well. So
Great.
So hi guys,
Paul.
Great to see you.
Paul, coming from Jamaica, and I say this coming from Jamaica because I know there is a very, very strong culture in Jamaica about it. Is it okay for a man to cry in public or in front of his girlfriend? Is it okay?
All right. They might tear up my Jamaican card. You have to understand that we Jamaicans are hypocrites. Yeah. So let me be crystal clear. Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. It's okay, and it's done, and it's a thing that's done. When you were on the show yesterday, you were talking about that first graduation we had.
Yes.
When that young man expressed what the 100 Black Men of London meant to him.
Yes.
And
absolutely.
all of us were crying.
In the back. All the men.
Every single man in the room that day
Cry.
was weeping. When my mom passed away, I didn't cry from the day I heard the news till about
Hmm.
2.5 months later.
Okay.
And I'm on a motorway in Greece.
I
Yeah,
hear what
I
you're
go to
saying.
Greece
I hear what you're
every
Yeah,
saying.
there you go.
day.
Come.
And I'm
Yeah.
driving on the motorway in Greece,
And it just,
listening to
yeah,
Greek radio, and then put
yeah,
on
It,
Puff Daddy, I'll Be Missing
just
You,
takes. Okay.
Pure Eye Water.
yeah. Yeah.
Just
It
triggers,
just
innit?
came out.
I had to
Triggers.
pull over because if I never pull over, I'd kill myself. Pure Eye Water. So, but
Mm.
here's the thing, and again, it has to come back to what Rudy was mentioning. It's about being in a place where either you are so confident in yourself, and Adam made a point about we using the phrase
Mm.
cry like a baby.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So you
Yeah.
have to be so confident of yourself that you don't feel no shame, you don't feel no nothing. Look, me a ball, my mother dead. Me a
Mm.
ball.
Yes.
That's it. Who not like it upon the moon?
I know that feeling. My mother
And
passed
so,
away.
so
I cried like a baby. Yeah.
yeah, what Rudy is saying is about having that confidence that you know you're not going down a peg. Yeah,
Mm-mm.
and also about the people around you. So you got the right people around you who, when I was by my mother's graveside and things were looking rocky, you have your brother who step up to you. Him a ball, everybody a ball, but you're,
Absolutely.
you're, you're in a safe place. And I
Yeah.
think we just need to recognize that men need that safe place as well.
So
Yeah.
here's the context I'm going to set for you, Rudy. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we cry when we're in pain, and when we're sick,
Mm-hmm.
it can be quite painful, and we cry. And sometimes when we're fearful, we are crying. So the question of men not crying when they're fearful or when they're in pain, do you think this is somehow linked to why men are afraid to be able to express when they're not feeling well? Because again, so
I
sometimes when you
think,
talk about stuff, the emotions come out.
I think really we're talking about maturity, right? Because
Okay.
as boys, we were terrible to one another. We were terrible. You see, when you become a comedian or you're looking for weaknesses, rude boy. You're looking
Yeah.
for the mother cry in front of me now because may I talk about that in 2 months later. You understand what I'm saying?
You're gonna
The
get
moment you
rough.
open your
Yeah.
mouth, shut up. Remember you was crying the other day. Hey, man, sit down, ya boy, ya idiot. You understand what I'm saying? So it's
That sounded
but
really aggressive. That sounded really aggressive, I have to say.
yeah, but you
I
could
felt,
yeah. I don't mind if it sounded that way because that's how
yeah.
that is what's good. That's the other end you're gonna be on when you are a youth or you're a little boy in the playground trying
Yeah.
to survive and work out where your status is. Because
Yes.
even animals carry on the same way. The moment other lions notice that the lion who's in charge of the pride is weak, them gone in. They will eat, they will bite him,
Yes.
women will destroy his testicles, So us as men, we go through the same thing. It's this growth thing and this where are you in the pecking order kind of like thing. Or otherwise you're gonna be the butt of the joke. Are you fat? Are you thin? Do you wear glasses?
Yeah.
Are you actually intelligent? Are you streetwise? All of these
Yeah.
things come into play to build up your character,
Okay.
and that was how I built my character by having a very strong mind and identifying the weaknesses within my peer group in order to survive.
Was you told to man up when you was growing up? Was you told to man up at any time?
All the time. Because I think when Paul covered it so succinctly, from the day we come out of the womb, we are told to man up.
Okay. Yeah. So we talk, and you're saying we're told to man up, and we try to live up to that. And there was an interesting comment. I think it's coming later on in the context in which man up is. So I think there's a consensus here that it's definitely okay for a man to cry, and
Oh, without
is that true? Yes, between all of us.
Yes.
yeah,
And
Yes.
and I know it's a great point that someone made about, when you hold your emotions in, it can affect your mental health. And that may be one of the reasons why men suffer from mental health in the way they do, because they hold their emotions in, they don't express it
particularly
physically,
within our community, I'd say.
particularly within our community. So, and if we're out there and we're seeing a brother crying or bawling, as we say, then, I think it's incumbent on us to be able to be supportive. And also, I think the great point that's coming out here is a safe environment. And for most people, the safe environment is a family or a relationship and partner. And it's about them also allowing the men to be able to feel comfortable, to be able to release that emotion without them looking at them and thinking, oh, you're a boy, you're weak. So I think there's a two-way thing. Very interesting comment. And Dunstan, I did see your comment, a great comment. If you want to put some of it back in here. Addy says, I rarely cry from pain or fear. I tend to cry when it's emotional in safe environments. I cry openly. If I don't feel safe I hide the tears. Ideally, we men should be able to cry openly and freely. And I totally agree with you, Addy. Yeah, I totally agree with you. And to root, and that is me. It's the way I see it. I'm an emotional guy. And to Rudy's point, hiding tears is about protecting self-image. So, I suppose Addy's saying here that it's about your ego, whereby when you try to hold the tears back. I mean, I'm surmising.
I hear you, but I don't think that's ego. There's nothing wrong with protecting what is yours. I think.
And what is yours? And what is yours, Rudy? Is it the ego that's yours you're protecting?
Is it my ego?
Yeah, what are you protecting?
No. Let go the ego.
So what are you protecting, Rudy?
It isn't about the ego. It's about my character.
What part of your character? I have to press you on this one.
No, that's
what
fine,
part of your character?
I don't mind. Right, that's why we said it depends on who you are in front of and why. The circumstances are never going to be the same.
If it's not ego, what part of your character you're protecting?
I can't generalize on this. I really can't. Okay.
Okay.
There has to be a specific reason for me to find myself in an emotional state.
Okay.
Where I'm gonna feel that I need to not even feel, because I'm out of control. I don't have this control.
Okay.
But my instincts will tell me this is not the place.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. I mean, great point. There's just pressing you. It's all subjective. We all have things. Yeah. Let me just go to the next question, and I'll let you know what the next question is that came up. So the next question was, what plays the greatest role in the way a man thinks or acts? And this got some great interaction. So I just took 2 comments. And the first one is how he saw his dad behaving when he was growing up. So that's what they feel is a man's behavior is dictated by how he sees his dad. And the second comment was, women get their identity from family. This is quite interesting, this comment here. It says, women get their identity from family. First thing is, how many children do you have? Men get the identity from what they do. I mean, that's quite an interesting perspective. And considering Mr. Lawrence has written a book on around, fathering children, tell me, Mr. Lawrence, what plays, in your mind, would you say plays the greatest role in the way a young man grows up to be a man?
Well, I first of all, I disagree with the person who tried to make a differentiation between men and women. But, again, it comes back to the 100 Black Men of London. What they see is what they'll be.
Yep.
Yep. The issue is that we can have a positive or a negative response to certain behaviors. So if you grow up in a house where you see your dad behaving in a certain way, there is no guarantee that is going to be your way of doing it as well. You could just go the exact opposite way. Yeah, you could swing the opposite way.
Wouldn't there have to be a stronger influence, though, Paul? What would be the stronger influence that would take you away from the influence of your father? So just,
it would be the impact that you see on your mother.
Okay.
Yeah. So if your dad is behaving in a negative way, and that is having a negative impact on your mother, and you are connected to your mother in that emotional way, your first instinct will be, well, I never want to see another woman suffer like that. Especially, you'll literally have flashbacks about it. So it's hard, but I do believe that what children see, what they see in that environment, in what we call the
Okay.
formative years, those
Yes.
first years, that's where their personalities are being formed. And if you wait until they're 11 plus to think that now you're going to try and turn it on, you've missed the
Bit
boat.
late. Yeah,
You
So
know,
bit
that
late.
is what I learned from writing my book. That actually, when you hit 11 plus, that die is already cast.
so
Yeah.
just
And so when we had mothers bringing children to us at the 100, the boy is 15, 16, and she's saying, change him.
yeah.
Too late.
Yes.
And I got,
We
Well, it's not
experienced
too
that.
late, but it's hard.
I got to say, you know what, sweetie, it's just as well you don't pay us for the service, because you wouldn't be getting no refund.
Okay. So, Mr. P, I'm gonna ask one question. I want a yes or no, and then I'm going to ask you a supplementary question. So, would you agree that a child's father, if he's around, because we know we won't have talked the issue about an absent father, plays a great role in the way a young man shapes up to be a man? Would you say that?
Yes, I would
Yes.
agree with
Okay.
that. Absolutely.
Right. So
Yeah.
let's leave that there. So if that is then the case, at what age? I know this is all subjective, and I'm going to ask subjective, and I'm going to ask Rudy the same question. At what age would you say then society and the environment outside of the home starts then to have a negative impact on that? Because we all know that there are, men who bring up their children incredibly well, but still they go the other way. At what age would you say potentially then society starts to have a greater impact on that young man's mind and the way he acts?
Puberty.
So who's this for?
So we're
Is this for
saying,
Ruby?
yeah, this is for you, Mr. P.
Oh, for
This is
me.
for you.
All right.
Yes, for you. Yes, I'm gonna come to Rudy afterwards.
All
Go
right.
on.
Something I say to a lot of people is with regards to children, a child from their babies, a year old, the first word that they learn is no. Yeah. So children tend to know from a very early age the difference between right and wrong. Yeah. In a general
Yeah.
context. Yeah. So if you from the child is very young, 2 years old, 3 years old, if you can't discipline that child from that age, you're going to be in trouble. You are going to be in trouble. I'm not saying you have to beat the child. I'm not saying that you have to, chastise the child, but you really need to break down to that child at an early age the difference between right and wrong, because as Paul very rightly said, their formative years are probably from about 4 to 10 to they're or 4 to about 8. they're
Okay.
like they're like recording machines. Everything they see and everything they hear, they record. Yeah, they may not be saying or speaking about it, but they're observing, they're seeing, they're feeling. All of their sensory organs are very, very sensitive and tuned, and everything's being
Okay.
recorded. So sooner or later it will be playback. They will play back what they've recorded. So you've got to put the correct recordings in at an early stage, an early time, so that when it comes to playback, it's sweet music you're hearing, and not them heavy metal, rock and drama and headbanging headache music.
So Rudy, I'm not saying you, I'm not saying you grew up on the road or on the streets and everything, but so at what age is up? I'm being serious, guy. Don't,
You know
no,
what?
no,
You know
no.
what?
I
I
mean,
know what.
no,
I don't even have
listen,
to. I
listen,
don't even have to.
Rudy.
It's not. It's not a case of looking at it as fun
Yeah,
or joke or
uh,
whatever. I think humor is wherever you
yeah,
find it.
yeah.
But I grew up in a domestically abused household. I
Okay,
grew up in that.
So in a
okay.
I
what? Sorry.
knew from a very early age.
He
I knew
grew
from a
up in.
very early age a domestic abusive household. I
Okay,
knew from a very early age, okay, that I was going to do 180 degrees from my dad. There's
okay.
always two sides to a
Yeah.
coin. There's
Okay.
always two sides, and you can learn from both ends. I love my dad dearly,
Hmm.
okay, but he taught me how not to treat a woman.
Yeah.
You understand?
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
So once again, Paul he's covered all the bases in terms of it's how you're nurtured, it's what you grow, it's what you see. From the time you hit 13, the most important people in your life tend to be your schoolmates because you spend more time with them.
Right.
So all of a sudden your peer group, you want to impress your peer group. You start doing things you wouldn't ordinarily do to be around your peer group. So this is where all
Okay.
this bravado and things starts to come in. So in terms of you do I think innately people know right from wrong. I don't think you really need the 10 commandments. They're in you.
Yeah. So here's the question, and I'm going to pose this to Paul. So if the nurture of the parent, and I would say the parent, the mother and the father play such a massive role in the kind of the mindset and the socialization. If as an adult they are not, because we have to bring this back to a man being vulnerable and not looking after his health. If as an adult he's not prepared to be vulnerable, he's not prepared to be open, he's not prepared to seek help when he needs it, is there not a failing somewhere?
Well, you know what, Ken? The first thing I have to say is that this is a generational conversation which I think has changed.
Okay.
So when I listen to Rudy talk, and I know he's about 30 years older than me, I get that. Yeah. So, but when I when I look at the way I raised my son, yeah, it's entirely different from this conversation we're having. Because once I started to get to a point where I started to understand that it wasn't necessary for me to raise him exactly the way I was raised. I didn't always get it right, but I adjusted that. And when I look at my friends who are my age and in that scene, we've all done that. And we're not perfect. We haven't got it right yet, but we are a long way away from our
Did you raise him to be tough, Paul? Did you raise him to be tough?
I raised him to be able to look after himself, which includes being tough when necessary, but going to the doctor when necessary. So I raised him to be what I call, and I know, in this liberal UK, what I'm about to say won't go down well. I raised him to be a man.
Okay.
So the only time where my son called me in fear was because he was fighting on the street. And I said to him, why were you fighting? And he said, somebody was troubling his girlfriend. My son does karate. My son kick him down. I said, what are you worried about?
Okay.
Because I also told him that if you're on the road with people, daughter, nobody must take liberties with her. That's how I raised him.
So the question, Mr. P, if the parent, if the father plays such a role, the question is, we have the men that are our age and younger that are not prepared to be vulnerable. They're not prepared to open up. Are we missing a trick? Are we missing a trick as parents when it comes to the vulnerability, to the showing emotion aspects of bringing in children? I'm just posing that question to you.
Yeah, we are. I believe we are missing a trick. And that's part of that child's or that person's development. It's very important. It's all part of their development and education, in the same way that you go to school to learn academically, and when you're out on the road, you learn about life and you're streetwise. You really do need to be able to know what is going on inside you. Okay, especially if you're trying to change what's going on around you.
Okay.
You need to know what's going on inside. And if you can't make that connection inside, you're going to have a whole heap of difficulty. And those difficulties will manifest in all sorts of different ways and all sorts of different problems that you'll get. Your attitude, your moods, all these things will change. So I think that the bottom line is, you need to, when you're raising children, you really do need to be able to connect with them on a level. They're not just your child, but at the same time, they're not your friend. Okay,
that's right.
You can be friendly with them, but they are not your friend. You have to have that boundary of parenthood and respect. You do need to have that.
So, Ken, as well. Ken,
go ahead.
One other quick thing as well is that I think we shouldn't gloss over the fact that this generation of fathers is very different. Yep. And so when you talk about,
I was waiting for when are we going to celebrate the fact that we've actually stepped so far forward.
So
we really have.
So I'm going to, if that's the case, then I don't know. Do you have a boy? Is it a boy? I know Paul has a boy. Rudy, is it a boy you have?
It's pure girl.
Pure girls. Okay, I'm the same.
No X's out, man.
You can't get the exit. No problem. Paul, as a son, I ask you openly, are you the kind of person that would hug and kiss your son, and allow your son to hug and kiss you?
My son is 6'5".
Yeah.
And he has no greater pleasure in life than reminding me that he's taller than me. And he will come in and he will plant a kiss on the top of my head, knowing that I'm going to try and kill him for doing it. And he will hug me, and we're cool. But for me, those are not the big things that I'm looking for. The big thing that I have achieved with my son is this. He will talk to me about anything.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep. And for me, that to me is more important than whether he will hug me.
Yeah.
For me, it is more important that he'll talk to me about any topic.
I totally agree. I totally agree. But the reason why I spoke about
it's an important aspect of sociology that does get missed out, I think. Because once you touch and feel, you know, we have that fear. Men have that fear of being accused of being homosexuals if we show that kind of emotion, or if we kiss. It's okay in football. They can hug and roll around on the pitch. You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
Everybody's fine with that. Within that arena, that is fine. But I mean, outside of that, I mean, it's been a case of it's the masculinity, femininity. Where's that line kind of thing that we've been searching for, because it's moved to the point where it's just out of control now.
And I think it's important, Rudy. And I remember the 100 Black Men, and Paul would remember this as well. We greeted each other by hugging each other. And there were people who just started the 100 Black Men, and you would see they would stand back. But after a while, they really hugged because they felt uncomfortable hugging another man. And I think this leads potentially into this vulnerability aspect we're talking about, where a man being able to express himself, being able to feel vulnerable, and again, show that he's not well. So, and this is where the hugging situation come in. Guys, we're going to move on to the next question, but I have to pay due respect to Rudy Liquid because I know that he has to leave us in a couple of minutes. It's been wonderful having. We're going to stay here with us three, but it's been great having Rudy here. And, I really appreciate you taking time, because I know you're off in a moment to have your own little podcast. Tell us about your podcast that you hold throughout the week, please, Rudy.
Well, what my podcast is it's called Keeping It Real with Rudy Liquid, which is a chat show where I get an opportunity to talk to my listeners. I actually interview my listeners. It's like the everyday man. And I would interview them alongside a well-known celebrity. To bring things into balance, because for some reason we assume that because someone's got a high profile, they're more relevant to society than somebody who empties the bins.
Yes.
And as far as I'm concerned, we're all gods and goddesses within our own right. And when we start hearing the everyday stories, it means we're starting to tell our stories. And that's my show, Keeping It Real. So far, I've had I've done 19 shows so far.
What days of the week is it on, Rudy? Where can they find it?
It's going to be on at 8:30.
It's on what days? What days a week?
It's on Monday. That's on the Monday.
And your page? What is your page? Your Facebook page?
My Facebook page is Rudy Liquid.
Rudy, and that's it. So Facebook.
Yeah, if you put in Rudy Liquid, you'll find my profile page, and then from there you'll find the pages that I have. So you'd have to actually put in Keeping It Real. It's Keeping It Real chat show, which will mean that people will be able to listen to the chat show. But I don't want to take away your listeners there.
Okay,
we'll take them.
You take them. Take them. Take them. Listen. At least I'll have one. I'll have one. Hey, there's no.
You need
Hey,
laughter.
because if it's not, if it's well, yeah, I could. Anyway, I won't even go there. But listen, it's been great having you on the show. I really appreciate you being here. I know you have to pop off now. So when I come back, there'll only be three of us. So when you're ready, and we'll have a conversation. Bless up. Really do appreciate your time, Rudy, and your conversation and your contribution today. All right. So let me just move on to the next question that came out today, and this was the next question that came. Oh, well, was there one other question? I think there might have been one other question, but hey, let me just come back here. Let me come back. I'm going to come back to that in a moment. So it's just us, guys. Let me just move this up here so we can get this up here. So there we go. The three of us here. Let me just move this somewhere just here so we can still get some comments. So it's just the three of us here. Here was a question. Another question that came up. And what does love... How does love play in relation to a man and his nurturing, and where that love comes from, and how that love is being delivered? Paul, what does love play?
Well, I think, again, I'm very wary of these questions that try to imply that somehow a man's receptors to love and so on, anything at all, is different from that of a woman. If you've never experienced love, if you've never had that on you, it is very difficult for you to be able to demonstrate it. And worse than that, sometimes it's very difficult for you to be able to accept it. And if you've been brought up in an environment where love was not demonstrated, you weren't really sure, and it wasn't necessarily because people were behaving badly, but they were just too busy. Yeah, mommy and daddy were out hustling. They didn't have time. They bought you stuff instead of looked after you. They didn't give you, as Rudy said, that hug from time to time. They didn't verbalize it. At the age we are at, I don't think my dad ever said he loved us. That was never going to happen. In his view, he demonstrated that love by keeping a roof over our head and not throwing us out when we were 16. And that was how he viewed love. My mother, quite different. She verbalized that. But again, very much in her later years. But there are people who never get that. They never experience that sort of love. And then when it comes to relationship time, it's very difficult for them, A, to give love, and B, to accept love.
Okay.
And you meet people all that. And that's male or female. I don't think that's something specific to men.
I understand, but with the kind of topic around the love potentially plays in, because I think the root of what a lot we're talking about is men and masculinity and this man up situation. And let's say love softens. I mean, we have to admit love softens.
It does. It does indeed.
Yeah, Mr. P.
I'm very different from the man when my son was born 25 years ago. Very, very different.
Mr. P. Love. What role does love play in the way a man sees his masculinity or grows up to be a man, a tough man, a sensitive man, an empathetic man? What role would you say love plays in that?
I think love plays a primary role in everything. Yeah, love, for me, love is everything. Love's very important. If you're not able to first and foremost love yourself, you can't love anybody else. Yeah, simply because you cannot give what you don't have. You just can't give what you don't have. So learning to love yourself, to know yourself, to understand yourself, I think is primarily the most important love that you can have. And once you have that love and appreciation for yourself, you're then in a position to be able to share it. Okay, but I think love underpins everything. Love is everything. That's how I see it.
So would you say
Sorry.
that a man who's grown up in a more loving, tactile, not just loving but very loving and tactile environment, is the kind of man that's more willing to be able to seek help when he needs it, is the kind of man who's more willing to go to the doctor? And let's talk it and have a prostate examination, because nowadays you can have a PSA test, which is the blood, but many years ago it was a rectal examination. And it was seemingly emasculating for a man to do that. So my question is, and I'll ask Paul the same question: if a man grows up in this environment of love and warmth and tactileness from a mother and a father, would he be? Do you feel he would be more receptive to going to get that kind of examination done?
Okay, I'll speak for myself. I did not grow up in a very loving or tactile environment. And I made a decision at a very early age that I'm not going to, I don't want to experience that kind of life. I'm a very tactile person. Yeah. Like I said before, I'm a sensitive guy. I'm in touch with my feminine side,
Yeah.
very much so. I know the balance. I'm 100% heterosexual. Yeah.
We're not
But what I will
questioning
say,
that. We're not. We're
no,
not.
I'm just making a point.
Okay, fair enough. You make
For
that
the
point.
record, yeah.
All right, we underline that one.
In red.
He read. Okay.
Why did you even think it was
Is
necessary
Harry?
to make that point? Why?
He said,
Let
"What?"
me examine
He said,
that.
"Why did you think it was necessary to make that point?"
No. I'm just saying. Hashtag just saying. Yeah.
Sorry,
So,
we're forgive us. Go ahead.
yeah, that's all right. That's okay.
Yeah.
It's all good. We're in the men's room. It's all good.
Yeah,
It's all good.
that's right. That's right. We're in the men's
So
room.
yeah. I'm 100% happy.
So I'm going to come in and ask a direct question, and I'm going to ask Paul. Paul, have you had a prostate examination, a rectal? You haven't.
No,
Would you?
I've
Would you?
I would if it was required. Yes.
What? Okay, so I'm going to show you some stats, some figures at the end.
I've had a PSA blood test.
Ooh, that's the blood. That's easy enough.
Yeah, but the reality of the matter is, we did a session on the prostate cancer, and one of the things they said is that the PSA blood test is not as good.
That's right. That's right.
Examine it. All
Yes.
it is an indicator to say you might
there's a problem.
need to get it out.
Yes.
So the bottom line is this: I'm way past any sort of prudishness around that sort of stuff when it comes to my life. Yeah, my life is more important than what's going to happen behind a screen.
Than your pride. Yeah.
Than anything else, and that is something that comes with age. Yeah. So we simply need to understand that. I think men, slower than some people would like. I think men are maturing.
Okay.
Yeah? I think
that's very optimistic. That's very optimistic
I think
and very positive.
We're moving along. So a lot of the stuff about rectal examinations, about that sort of stuff, I remember going to Jamaica and seeing my uncle, and my uncle, old time Jamaican man, desperately ill, and he said to me, "You know what? Look, Paul, they sent me to the doctor, and the doctor said I need a colonoscopy." And my uncle just tell him about himself and walk over.
Yeah.
And that was the end of the conversation. We are not those men anymore.
Okay, Mr. P.
We're not those men anymore.
Mr. P, have you had a rectal examination?
Yeah, I had one when I was a lot younger. I had a rectal examination when I was much younger. I was in my teens. I had a rectal examination.
And what was that for?
I don't have any.
Oh, sorry. You may not want to share what it's for. Was it for anything like prostate cancer?
No. I was in my teens. Yeah, and I was getting a pain. In my nuts, and I didn't know what it was.
Okay.
I really didn't. I was probably about, I think, 15, 16, and sometimes I'd be bending over for like half an hour. I didn't know what it was, and it's like I'd been hit in the nuts. Yeah, and it was very painful. And they obviously did a rectal examination, didn't find anything, and after a while, I've not had that problem since. Maybe it's just a teenage thing, a growing thing, I don't know. But since then, I've not had a rectal examination, and I don't have an issue with that because my health is more important than my pride and my ego. It's not about that.
I'm going to come on to the sensitive one in a moment. But I've had a rectal examination. I've had hemorrhoids, and if anyone has hemorrhoids, it's not nice. It's a lot of blood that you pass out your innards when you have hemorrhoids. And I went to the hospital, and it was a female. And she said, bend over. And I looked at her and she said, bend over. Yes, yes. And for a fleet, I looked, I said, I'm going to lose my virginity here. This is what I said in my mind. This is what I said. You know, I am going to lose my virginity here. But the thought of what could potentially be wrong, I did it. And, you know, fortunately, you know, as you know, if the blood's quite bright, it does not coming from your stomach. So I was fine. But bending over, having a woman, not a man, sticking her finger up my anus, it was momentarily an emasculating experience.
Ken, I'm going to put this to you.
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah? You would have still accepted that examination if it was a man.
Yes, absolutely. But I would have said, but to have my first experience with a woman, because I know there are many women who go to the doctors and as a gynecologist, they want a female. They want a female. Yeah. So for me as a man, to have my first experience with a woman, and she was quite blunt. She said, bend over. There was no please. It was like, bend over. And I was crouched like on my all four hands, and yeah, she did what she had to do. Okay, so we're gonna go somewhere now. So prostate cancer affects so many men, but guys, here is the kicker. One of the biggest indicators of a man's health is his sexual health.
Yes.
The biggest indicator, and I'll say it as it is, when a man cannot achieve and maintain erection, especially if he's getting older, it's a big indicator of his of his health. And often it's diabetes. Sometimes it's diabetes, because what happens is diabetes, you've got high blood sugar levels, the blood vessels in your penis are so small, the high sugar levels destroy that. And a lot of men find out they have diabetes because they start to suffer from impotence. And they suffer in silence, guys. They suffer in silence. And the fact of the matter is, there is medical advances that can help you, even outside of medical, even with diabetes. And a man, that's his masculinity as far as I'm concerned. And he realizes, well, you know what? I can't do what I used to do. You know.
But you've asked and answered the question. You've asked and answered the question, because this is about masculinity. And we began the conversation with talking about the context. And we cannot deny that one of the most prized possessions, and rightly or wrongly, one of the most prized possessions a man has is his masculinity. And at the top rung of masculinity is his ability to procreate. Even if that's not what the sexual encounter is designed to do. It is about procreation. And it's like if you talk to a woman who has had to unfortunately have a hysterectomy, it is absolutely about taking away her femininity and what is the prime reason that we are told women exist for: reproduction. Even when they're not planning to have babies or they're past the age, just the loss of that organ, that thing, it's a big thing. And it's the same thing for men. When we have to face the fact that, you know, whether you believe in the Bible or whether you believe in evolution, that thing that we were made to do, you can't do. That's a big thing.
It's heavy. But there's a realization, Mr. P, because look, how many funerals have you been to of people our age? How many funerals have you been to of men who have died because of lifestyle illnesses? Had they acted before? Had they acted when they saw the signs? Possibly, you know, when it comes to their putting on weight. Possibly when it comes to their sexuality. Had they acted, they would have still been here. And remember, when a man passes away, he doesn't just pass away. He leaves a brother, a mother, a father. He leaves children. So this is something that we have to face up to, and we have to admit that some men are their own worst enemies. And when it comes to this sexual side, yes, it is something that can be covered. When it comes to it, can be rectified. What's your take on, you know, this issue around a man and his sexuality and the masculinity around it one day not working as well as it should be working. Mr. P.
Who's that to? Oh, to me.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
What around it? Sorry.
Yeah. So, what's your thought about a man's sexual health being an indicator of his unwellness and how they deal with that?
Yeah, I think for as you said, I think it must be quite devastating for a man, quite devastating to go through, I suppose, a male menopause, if for want of a better term, because again, as we said earlier on, we established the whole masculinity of a man is based on his sexuality and what he's able to do and how he performs in bed, etc., etc. A lot of that is key to a man being a man. And then one day when suddenly things are not working correctly down there, okay, it can be devastating. And again, because we don't have that freeness of being able to be vulnerable, we don't want to talk about it. Because if we don't talk about it, the problem festers. The problem will fester, and you don't know who to talk about it or how to talk about it. And, it can lead to other things, or it's an indication of bigger issues.
Absolutely. And I can see Paul shaking his head there around that. And, it's a serious point. We could laugh and joke about a man's sexuality as much as you want. It's a serious joke. And for me, I've been to far too many funerals of men who died from life. And, these are men, successful men. These are men who had, quote unquote, successful careers. But they invested in their business, but they didn't invest in their health.
Themselves. Yeah.
They didn't invest in their health. And, for me as a father, if I don't invest in my health, for me, I am not being as an effective father as I should do. Because if I'm not healthy, then what can I do for my children? Paul.
That's a changing of the messaging, though, Ken. Because, when you get to a point where you start to ask yourself, what is your true legacy?
Mm-hmm.
What are you really trying to achieve?
Mm-hmm.
What is it you're trying to do? Why are we here? Those existential questions. But the reality of the matter is, the society we have grown up in, and I'm now talking about the Western culture where money and the pursuit of wealth is the most important thing, where health is a secondary concern, where drugs are designed to prop you up. And one of the things that Ade said in the chat was that you have all these drugs to help us get over impotence, but they're not getting to the root of the problem.
Yes.
That's the culture we're in. And so, a show like yours, this podcast, your entire business is more about a mindset shift.
Yes, absolutely.
It's
absolutely,
more about
Paul.
a mindset shift. So we stop saying things like your health is your wealth flippantly and start to understand it. And you know what? I'm quick to hold my hand up and said, I've spent far too many years trying to nail down a profession, trying to nail down stuff, and other things have gone to waste. And I've had that alarm bell rung, and been told, listen, dude, if you want to see your grandchildren, you need to fix up.
Yeah.
That
Real
conversation alone made me drop 3 stones.
Yeah.
Just that one single conversation. Yeah. And so
and
we have to change how we think about our legacy and what we're leaving and what we want to be known for.
Absolutely. And we're going to come back to that because I talk about 3 kinds of health care. And in other words, I'm going to come back to that in a moment. Just stay there. I'm not going to mute you guys, so just stay there a minute. I just want to share with some individuals here just some things that's happening a little bit later on in the week. So just give me 5 minutes or a couple of minutes when I come back to you guys. It's such a pertinent conversation we're having today, guys. And I really appreciate all the great comments that are coming in. We're going to come back in a moment. And if you have a couple of questions you want to put to the guys and myself, then feel free to fire them away in the chat here. What I really just want to tell you about is the launch of a program which I am holding, which potentially falls in line with what we're talking about. And that program is called the L.E.A.N Brotherhood. And it's a 4-week program that I'm holding. And it's not for everybody. And I'll be absolutely straight. It's not for anybody. It's only for people who are really interested. It's going to be a very small group program. I held this last year and it went incredibly well. It was a mixed program. And I had a couple of people lost between 7 and 21 pounds. But if you want to lose weight, reverse your pre-diabetes and improve your immunity health, this is the program for you. And guess what, guys? I will admit tomorrow I am aged 57 years old. It's my birthday tomorrow. And because of that, I am going to give an extra £57 discount between today and tomorrow. You go to L.E.A.N MindBodyCoach.com, take a look at the program. If you like the program, just put that code in, Ken57, and you'll get an extra £57 off the price. There's about £700 worth of bonuses that I'm giving away with the program. I mean, it's on, as I said, it's not for everybody. It's only for a select amount of people, but it is absolutely incredibly powerful program. If you want to know more about my experience with my book, you can also go to my website, L.E.A.N MindBody Coach, and .com, and purchase my book. And thank you for everyone who's purchased that. And on Wednesday, I hold a podcast called Lean Bites Live. This podcast happens on Wednesday, and we're in lockdown on Wednesday. Well, we're in lockdown on Thursday, and on Wednesday, I'm going to be talking about some strategies that we need to deal with to cope during the lockdown period. So you can join me this coming Wednesday for Lean Bites Live. Again, go to my website, L.E.A.N MindBodyCoach.com, and you can see all the information about that and how that will play itself out on Wednesday. So on Monday, we hold a podcast called Make Health Your Habit. And on Wednesday, we hold a podcast called Lean Bites Live. So all the information is on my website, L.E.A.N And there's also, you can also go there and you can pick up this here, not necessarily that, you can pick up this here. It's a 5-day free meal plan. All you have to do is register on the mailing list. So go there. It's all there. It's all there, guys. So just go there and take a look when you are ready to do that. So absolutely wonderful. So we're back now with the free guides. We've had the little break there, intermittent break there, guys. Listen, in my coaching, I talk about 3 types of healthcare. I talk about inactive, and that means people do nothing about their health. They don't do anything to look after their health at all. And unfortunately, there are far too many men who focus on that. And just so the ladies watching this know, we will have a program that focuses on women as well in the near future. The next level is what I call reactive. So these men will only do something when something's wrong. So if something goes wrong, then they will react. And often that's sometimes even too late, because how often has people heard about an illness and I've only got 4, 5, 6 months? Because when you're reactive, you're potentially going a bit too late. And then the third one, I don't know what's happened to Paul. Paul should be there, hopefully. Has he gone?
Yeah, I'm still here.
We lost the camera. And then the third point is proactive. And this is how I believe we should be in our healthcare. We should be proactive. So we create a defense mechanism for illness. And that includes going to the doctor. That includes losing weight. That includes going to the gym. That includes eating healthy, which is why my lifestyle is the way it is. So I'm going to ask you an open and honest question, and I'm going to ask Paul the same thing. If you were to say open and honesty, your healthcare, is it inactive, reactive, or proactive? Be open and honest with us now.
Yeah, I'll be honest. It's quite proactive, because that's why I just mentioned. Take your health supplements. There's nothing wrong with taking health supplements.
Yes.
Okay. We're living in the West. We're not back home. All right. The foods that we get in here, half of it isn't real. It's been tampered with. It's not proper food. It's not fresh. That's the first thing. So you're going to need the supplements to support, to fill in those blanks where you need those vitamins and minerals that you don't ordinarily get. You know, I don't like bitters. I think bitters are nasty, but I take them every day.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah, I take them every day. So that's why I say in that respect, I think I'm quite proactive. I exercise, I train. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Great.
you know, I know that if I don't do that, I'm gonna break down. So rather than, you know, waiting to break
For something.
down, I would do something to keep my body in as best a condition as possible. Well, not just my body, but
But
my mind
also
as
your mind.
well.
Paul, is your health care inactive, reactive, or proactive?
Reactive. Right now, it's
Okay,
definitely reactive,
that's
and working to change that. Yeah. Like I said a couple of years ago, well, not a couple of years ago, about 11 years ago, I had a diabetes scare. I was fortunate that I
okay.
think I had the best diabetes doctor in the world.
Okay, great.
He gave me some straight advice, and now we're talking about 11 to 12 years later, and they're now starting to wonder if I ever had it in the first place,
Good.
because my
Yes,
blood sugar has been perfect
great.
from about 18 months after that first
Fantastic. That's great
consultation.
news. That's really good to hear that.
Yeah, because statistically they say no matter how well you look after yourself, once you've had diabetes, you will always get a creep in your blood sugar level after 10 or so years. I'm not experiencing that. Mine
Great.
remains nailed down.
That's great news
But
to hear.
Good.
that is
Good.
not to suggest I'm in the sort of level of fitness that I should be, and,
Yes.
and that is an ongoing task.
Well, I appreciate your openness to say that it is reactive, but I truly believe that everybody's healthcare, male and female, should be proactive. I don't think you should wait for illness to
Mm.
come. I think if you create a defense mechanism by living a healthy lifestyle, it doesn't mean you can't get sick, but statistically, it shows that if you are proactive, if you exercise, if you eat right, if you mentally protect your mind, if you become unwell, then you are able to get better quickly. And I think the COVID coronavirus has shown us how people with comorbidities have been more susceptible to the vagrancies of COVID.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's been a fact, and this is why even when the Prime Minister got unwell, he tried to get on your bike and lose weight, because it's statistically, whether you believe in the coronavirus or not, I won't even go there. In any illness, if you are in a fitter health physically and mentally, and you get on well, you stand a better chance to recover. So why not be proactive? And again, I will say this, and I say this respectfully: if you're a father, if you have children, you are out there working to provide for them, great. But you will not be able to provide for your children if you are unwell. So invest in your physical and mental well-being. And we're coming into a lockdown period now. And the last lockdown period, it was terrible for some people in so many ways. During this lockdown period, ensure that your physical and mental health stays strong. And there are different ways you could do that. And again, I'm going to be discussing that on Wednesday. So I'm going to come to you, Mr. P, in summary. I'm going to ask you two things. Yeah? Two things here. Firstly, in a summary, what would you say you have, because you've had comments from other men here, what would you say you have taken away from this conversation? And as I'm an action orientated person, what action will you take after today? So what have you taken away from this conversation? And what particular action or actions will you take today with regards to your health?
Okay. It's actually been a great conversation. I haven't seen Paul for a long time. I haven't seen Rudy for a long time. So it's been great to share this space, with the three of you. Firstly, I just wanted to say that. I wanted to big up as well everybody in the chat room. Quite a few people leaving lots and lots of comments, which is great. The interaction has been fantastic. What I'll take away from this is to continue being open, continue learning, knowing that I don't know everything. Yeah, not that I'm saying that's how I am normally, but knowing that there's always something to learn. You know, there's always something to learn. That's what I'll take away from this. Hearing Paul and hearing Rudy speak of their experiences growing up, and mine being different as well. It's opened my eyes to things, and
Okay, great. Yeah.
realizing that their situation, both of their situations were different, and they were both products of that situation, and they are who they are. Just because they've had a bad upbringing, it
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have a bad life.
Let's hear an action you're going to take. What? Because let's not just talk, because we could talk as much as we want, unless we
Yeah.
are taking action individually. And the great thing about you taking action, there will be people who will model you, there will be people who see you. So there's a ripple effect. So what action or actions will you take from today, from tomorrow, as a result of being on this show today and hearing the conversations?
Okay. Just spread it. I'd spread the word more. Speak to people more. Interact with people more regarding their health. Be more supportive. Engage more with people. For example, using prostate cancer as an example, I'd be saying to guys, listen, have you been checked? You know, or if you haven't been checked, what's in the way? What's stopping you from
Will
getting
you
checked?
get a check yourself?
Yeah. Like I said, I'm in the process of changing surgeries, doctor
Okay,
surgeries at the moment.
great.
I said that earlier on. So I have no fears around getting a prostate cancer check. And I even discussed this with my cousin. Yeah, I had a chat with my cousin about this, Simon, and I
Yep.
said to him what was going on, and I didn't realize. It was interesting. I'm glad I did speak to him about it, because he told me it was the opposite with his GP, because he was like me, was more than willing to get it done, and the GP was like, it didn't really want to do it. So I
Okay,
didn't I didn't feel too left out. So
great.
just talking, just raising the awareness
Okay,
about and the importance of health,
great. I'm coming
and
to you, Paul.
engaging with people that I know.
Let me just read this comment from Deli. It says, this podcast has helped me to better understand how men approach their healthcare and some of the challenges they face in taking care of themselves. We really appreciate that comment, Delia, and appreciate that the fact that you've gained that. Thank you very much for your contribution. Please, as we're coming to a close in the podcast, if you want to make a comment, just put them in the chat. Let's go. Paul, ask you the same question. As a result
I,
of being on the show, what have you taken away, and what action or actions will you take, Paul?
well, I think whenever I take part in shows like this, probably one of the consistent takeaways is that never feel that you're alone. Never feel that
Okay.
whatever path you are on, you're by yourself. And I think that's very important. And we're on the topic of men. It's very important for us as men to not feel that the way we're thinking, the way we're feeling is something which is foreign, it's odd, it's different.
Yes.
We're not alone. You're not different. You're not weird. You're not peculiar. You're human.
Yes.
You're a man.
Yeah.
This is how
That's
men
right.
think. In terms of a takeaway, for me, the takeaway it's quite fortuitous that we had this conversation today, because I made myself that decision that I'm not going to go into 2021 in the same sort of level or lack of level of fitness that I've existed. I've lost a
Okay.
lot of weight during lockdown, and I want to continue to do that and raise my fitness levels, because what you said,
Absolutely.
Ken, is absolutely right. This is about protecting yourself and
Yes.
protecting your legacy.
Yes.
I'm not ready to give my son anything. He's got to
Absolutely.
keep working. He ain't
Yes.
getting nothing. I'm gonna be around until the last
Yay! 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 Leave! Yay! He could wait and wait some more.
He's gonna
Yeah.
have to wait some more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So so
lovely.
so it is about preserving because you know what?
Yeah.
That's what life. And I don't want to just live long. I want to live well.
You see,
Yes.
and this is a
Yeah.
great point, because I talk about there's a difference between lifespan and health span. There are so many
Yep.
people who may live a long lifespan, but their health
They're
span
suffering.
is 10, 15 years shorter. Why? You want your health span to be as long as your lifespan, at least as long. Yes? And that's a great way to look at it. You know, and I really appreciate the feedback and the comments that have come in, and I appreciate the vulnerability. I appreciate the openness, guys, because I think the consensus is here. I mean, is that men can be vulnerable without feeling emasculated. Going to the doctor, feeling in pain, feeling unwell, doesn't mean you're lesser. Doesn't mean a lesser man. In fact, going to the doctor is a way of making you stronger. And I think definitely as a father, for me, the onus on looking after my health is for me to be as effective father as I can to follow on for what Paul said for as long as I can. And I think that is an important, I truly believe if you live a life where you don't look after your health and you have children, to me, it can be seen as slightly selfish because, you're no good to your children when you're sick. And even worse, you're no good to them if you are deceased. I'm sorry to say that, but we've been to too many funerals, Paul. Too many funerals.
Yeah. No, that's the reality. You don't need to
too many funerals.
Ken.
That's it.
That's
too many funerals.
Yeah, it's a reality.
It's real. And we've gone on a little bit longer than we normally go on because of the topic was so vast, and we could have gone on a lot longer. We skipped over some of it, but I really hope that the people watching gain something, and it elicits some conversations in the home. After the podcast, you'll debate and you'll have some conversations in your home about that, and some of the women may have gained a greater understanding of their men and how to communicate the men. But the main message is, men, you need to look after your health. Do not wait until illness sets in. Be proactive. And if illness and weakening your family, help is out there. Guys, let's live as long as we can. Let's only, outside of the COVID period, go to parties, christenings and weddings. Let's put the black suits away, that they only come out at certain times, because that's what's about. And, if there's been 1 year that's taught us about illness and death, it's been this year. It's been this 2020 year. So as we move into the last chapter of this year, let's make health an aspiration as big as our wealth aspirations. Yes?
And also, I think we need to give thanks. We're still here.
Absolutely.
We're still here. We're able to do this podcast today. We're still here. So that in itself, that's important.
Great stuff. So in closing, Mr. P, I know you do a great service. Please tell us if someone wants to reach you, just very, very briefly about your service or whatever you want to talk, and how people can reach you after this.
Okay. Primarily at the moment, there's not too much going on regards the media work that I do. But in terms of media work, photographer and videographer, we also do a lot of website design and we do live streaming. Yeah, but we don't do like the Facebook and the YouTube. We do proper streaming. We've got our own servers and stuff. So we are able to accommodate people and help people with that. Also, the advertising, the marketing, the text line is still running, nearly 13 years.
Absolutely. Great service.
Every day.
Great service.
Thank you. People get my messages and stuff. So I'm always out there on social media, just letting people know what's going on within our community, products, businesses, services, and what people are up to. And the best place to find me, everything is on my website, djmrp.com. That's the place to go. You pick up my social media from there, you get my information. And the best way to reach me, just call me. Just give me a call.
Great. That's fantastic. Paul, I know you're a man who has a wealth of a dexterity of service. I know just ticks. So please tell if someone wanted to reach out to you after this, how would they?
If you want to,
and your service.
Reach me, probably the easiest way to reach me is via Facebook. That's www.facebook.com/idleyardy. Every Sunday, 2 p.m., I do the People Talk Show.
Yes.
Which Ken was a guest on last week. We've been doing that since lockdown more or less started. So we're probably approaching about 30 shows now. We've not missed a Sunday. It's a great way to contact me. If you're doing events, remember, you can do virtual events. You don't have to worry. And justtickets.com, just-tickets, is where you can mount your events and sell your tickets.
Great. Well, guys, listen, I really appreciate that. As I said, you've been on the show, being vulnerable, being open. Big thank you to Rudy Liquid. Big thank you to DJ Mr. P. big thank you to Paul Lown. A big thank you to you, the guys, everybody's contributing in the chat today. You guys have been absolutely great, and you've been on all the time. Yeah. You have shown so much love, and there's been some great comments in the chat. Listen, we're back here next week with another Make Health Your Habit Live. I'll be here on Wednesday with a Lean Bites Live. Go to my website, L.E.A.N MindBodyCoach.com. All the details are on the site, because, you know, it's just about sharing the information and sharing the love. And, you know, for me, it's just today's again reinforced my desire to be proactive in my healthcare. And, you know, I just want to see as many men as possible as fit and strong, because the fitter we are, the more economically empowered we can also be. Yeah. So guys, listen, sort it out, fix up, go to the doctors, get that checkup. I actually forgot. I actually had this to share with you. Let me share this very, very quickly with you. Let me share this before we go. You have to go. I have another thing. No problem. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. D. I'm just going to share this thing with some individuals here just now, because I thought I cannot go without actually sharing with everybody some stuff here.
You dashed out Paul already. Right.
Yeah, no, Paul came out. If you're 20 to 40, men should have a complete physical checkup. Every 2 to 3 years. This checkup should include at least tests for diabetes and blood pressure. If you're 40 to 49, men should have an annual checkup every 1 to 2 years, including an EKG. Every 4 years, a regular checkup should also include diabetes, cholesterol, blood pressure, and kidney. And if you're 50 plus, your checkup should take place on an annual basis. So if you're over 50, you should have a checkup on an annual basis. Guys, thank you very much. You've been wonderful. You've been with me all evening. It's been great hearing you. I hope you took a lot away from me. Yeah, lovely. Let's keep safe. Let's keep strong during the lockdown. It'll be 4 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever it is. But let's make sure we come out the lockdown fitter, healthier, and stronger. Good night, and thank you once again for joining the Make Health Your Habit podcast live, because the best habit you could do is to make health your habit.